for this echo. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Olumide Ojo. I will be your tutor for chemistry and biology. The first advice I will tell you is that you make sure that as many things that you heard there, and also go back to your past question. Make sure that you do many things on your past question also. It requires you burning the night candle. Yeah, I know you will make it. So today I divided the biology class into 8. So I will be teaching the first 3 sections. The first one is I will be on the characteristics of living organisms, cell structure, functions of cells, components, level of organization, then cell, tissue, organ, system, and organism. So I'll be bringing a question from JAM, the past JAM questions from 2021 below. So I'll be giving you all those questions, but every question will be coming from these things. So what do you know about the characteristics of living things? We are talking about the Mr. Niger D. M for movement, R for respiration, N for nutrition, E for irritability, E for excretion, then D for death. So then we'll be talking about the cell structures and function of the cell components. The cell structure and function of the cell components. That means the plant and animal cell. What are those things that is the plant and animal cell, and what are they used for? Then we'll be talking about level of organization. We know that cell is the most smallest things in life. That is simplest of all the organs in life. So we'll be combining the cells. When cells combine, they form tissue. When tissue combine, they form organs. When organ combine, they form system. And when system combine, they form organization. That means they form organisms. So we'll be talking about all these things. Let's go to question. Now, question number 1. This from 2021. Past question. When a spirogyral cell is immersed in a salt solution, more concentrated than its cell sap, what happened to it? A, remains unchanged. B, takes deep water and bursts. C, absorbs a little water. And D, loses water and shifts. Now, we have 3 types of solution. We have an isotonic solution, hypertonic solution, and an hypotonic solution. Isotonic solution is when both the solute and the solvent, they are in the same level. They are in the same concentration. While we have hypertonic, that's when the solute is more than the concentration of the solute is more than the solvent, and we have the hypotonic. Now, more concentrated means that what? It is in an hypertonic solution. That means the spirogyra is in an hypertonic solution. So what happens when a system or a cell is an hypertonic solution? Because the hypertonic solution is more powerful than the cell, it will shrink the cell. The cell will become smaller and loses water. So if you go back to the question now, we said A remains unchanged, B takes deep water and bursts, C absorbs a little water, then D loses water and shifts. So the answer is loses water and shifts. Shifts is the same thing as shrink. So let's go to number 2. The function of ribosomes in the cell is A. Protein synthesis, B. Starch synthesis, C. Transport of material, then D. Lipid storage. Ribosomes in the cell, its main function is to produce protein. That's the function of ribosomes. But there's some other organelles in the cells that also produce, like endoplasmic reticulum, that produce the lipid. It produces and also store the lipid. So, cytoplasm in the cell, it deals with the transport of materials. So, I've also explained to you now those things that the organelle that can do those things that they explain, that they are talking in the options. So, let's go back to the question now. The function of ribosomes in the cell is A. Protein synthesis, B. Starch synthesis, C. Transport of material, then D. Lipid storage. So, from an explanation, the answer is A. Protein synthesis, because the only function of ribosomes is to synthesize protein. Why B and D? B and D is endoplasmic reticulum, and C, the transport of material, is done only by the cytoplasm. So let's go to question 3. The smallest living organisms which share the characteristics of both living and non-living matters are. The smallest living organisms which share the characteristics of both living and non-living matters are A. Bacteria, B. Fungi, C. Viruses, then D. Protozoa. Now, living organisms, like we know, Mr. Naja D, living organisms can move, they can produce their own food, they can respire, they can excrete, they can die. So, all those things are for living organisms. But non-living organism cannot do this. So, in all this now, virus cannot metabolize. That means it cannot break down its own food into smaller process, which every living organism can do. So, virus in this case is example of non-living organisms in the answer. Bacteria, all the properties of bacteria show that yes, it's a living organism. All the properties of fungi show that yes, it's a living organism. All the properties of protozoa show that it's a living organism. But virus has some properties that show that yes, they are not living organisms. So they both behave. Virus behave as a living organism and also as a non-living organism. While bacteria, fungi, and protozoa, they behave as living organisms. So let's move to it. So the answer is virus. Next. The process by which a red blood cell placed in distilled water absorbs water until it bursts and releases its content into the surrounding is known as. The process by which a red blood cell placed in distilled water absorbs water until it bursts and releases its content into the surrounding known as. Now, I told you earlier on that we have three types of solution. We have an isotonic solution where both the cell and the surrounding, they are in the same environment. They are in the same level of environment, no any concentration higher or lower than anyone. So everyone will remain the same as they are. Then we have an hypertonic solution, whereby the solution is having concentration greater than that of the cell. So when that happens, when the concentration of the outside, the surrounding, is more than the cell, then the cell has to shrink, release its content. Then we have hypotonic solution, a solution whereby the surrounding is having less concentration compared to the cell. So since the cell is having higher concentration than the surrounding, water, the content of the surrounding, which is water, will move into the cell. So this now happened in this now. They said the process by which a red blood cell placed in distilled water. So if it is placed in distilled water, that means the distilled water is what? Is an hypotonic solution. That means the cell is bigger than the concentration of the cell is bigger than the solution. absorb water until it bursts and releases its content into the surrounding. So in this case now, the hypotonic solution is with the cell is now receiving water from the solution and later get burst. Now, the option says A, osmosis, B, plasmolysis, C, turgidity, and D, hemolysis. Now, let me explain those options for you one by one, because now when the blood, when it's in hypertonic solution and it is shrink on its own, it's called plasmolysis. When the cell is in a solution that is concentration is higher than that of the cell, then it release what is inside it, then it shrink. That is called plasmolysis. But when a cell is in concentration that is lesser than it, like this one like this question now, and it's taking water into itself, then as it's taking the water, a time will reach when the osmotic pressure is very high that it cannot contain it again. It has to burst to the surrounding. That is called hemolysis. But there's a condition in which the cell will receive water from the surrounding. When the solution, when it's greater than that of the concentration, is greater than that of the surrounding, it will continue to receive water. And the more you receive water, the more turgid it is. That is turgidity. So osmosis is just the movement of molecules from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. So B, plasmolysis, is when it is shrinking because of it's in hypertonic solution. C, turgidity is when it receives the solution but it does not shrink, it become turgid. While D is when it receives the solution and it cannot contain, because it cannot contain the osmotic pressure, so it has to release it to the surrounding. So our answer from the question is D, hemolysis. The process by which a red blood cell placed in distilled water absorb water until it bursts and releases its content into the surrounding is known as hemolysis. D. Thank you. Next question. Which of the following pairs of organisms are photosynthetic? Which of the following pairs of organisms are photosynthetic? So, what do we mean by photosynthetic? That means they can produce their own food by themselves. But they still have some parts of their body that can do what plants can do. That have chloroplasts that can produce their own food by themselves. You know, the difference between animal and plant is that plants can produce their own food. That's why we say they are photosynthetic. Why animal cannot provide their own food? Every animal depends on plants. But there's some animal now that doesn't depend on plants. Some unicellular animal now that doesn't depend on plants. They can produce their own food by themselves. So that's what they are asking us here now. Which of the following pairs of organisms are photosynthetic? A, amoeba and paramecium. B, euglena and chlamydomonas. C, volvulus and rhizopus. Then D, nostoc and plasmodium. Now, amoeba and paramecium, they are animal. They don't produce their own food. They live on their host to eat anything they see. Volvulus and rhizopus, they are the same thing. Nostoc and plasmodium are the same thing. So the only two pairs that can produce their own food by themselves are euglena and chlamydomonas. Euglena and chlamydomonas. So which of the following pairs of organisms are photosynthetic? The answer is B, euglena and chlamydomonas. Yes. Our topic is not covering this. That this one is for the next topic. The above organism can be classified under which phylum. So I deliberately removed this from this topic because it's a very, very long topic on its own. So we are not going to do this. So The next one. Which of the following structures contain activities of the living cell? Activities of cell. Now, let me A. Nucleus, B. Centrosome, C. Mitochondrion, then D. Golgi body. Now, the life of a cell is the nucleus. The life of a cell is the nucleus. The centrosomes, it contains some organelles that help in the cell division. The mitochondrion is a powerhouse of the cell. It controls the respiration of the cell, breaking down to provide energy for the cell. While the Golgi body is the one that pack the protein that is produced by the ribosomes. So Golgi body is the one that packs the site of packing the protein. So if you go back into the question says, which of the following structures control the activities of the living cell? So the best choice is A, nucleus. It controls the activities of the living cell. That's why they say nucleus is the life of the cell. Nucleus is just like the heart and blood of human being in the cell. Thank you. Next question. So the same thing. This question is coming from the kingdom animal. So we'll move to the next. The cytoplasm of a cell is considered a very important component because it A, regulates the amount of energy in the cell, B, suspend all the cell's organelles, C, is the outermost part of the cell, and D, is solely responsible for cell division. Now, let me explain all the options one by one. It says A, regulate the amount of energy in the cell. Now, the organelle that is responsible for regulating the amount of energy in the cell is mitochondria. So the mitochondria is the one that regulates using the respiration. So it regulates the amount of energy that enter used by the cell. B, suspend all cell organelles. That is cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is the whole part. It takes apart from every organelle in the cell, the rest of the cell is the cytoplasm. So it's just like saying that the water in the body, the water in the body and the blood is the one that is moving every particles, nutrient, everything inside the blood. So the same thing is the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm, the nucleus is the life of the cell, while cytoplasm is the one that moves every organ around in the cell. Then C is the outermost part of the cell. So the outermost part of a cell is either a cell wall or cell membrane. If it is animal, it will be cell membrane. If it is plant, it will be cell wall. Because the plant has a cell membrane and a cell wall. So if it is animal, it has only cell membrane. So it has only cell membrane. Then D is solely responsible for cell division. So the centrosomes is the one that is responsible for cell division. So we can see now that from the four options, the cytoplasm of a cell is considered a very important component because of what? B, suspend all cells organelles. That means it carries all the whole cells organelles. It helps them, it helps them to move from anywhere, one place to another. Thank you. Next question. Yeah. Use the diagram shown to answer the question after and R. The level of water in the tissue funnel will A, rise, B, fall, C, remain the same, D, double. So what we are going to do in the diagram is that we are going to look first what type of solution is in the diagram. Remember I told you about isotonic solution when both the cell and the surrounding are in both concentration. And I told you about hypertonic solution when the cell has a lower condensation compared to the surrounding. And I told you about hypotonic solution when the cell has a higher condensation than the surrounding. So let's look at this one now. The tissue funnel. We have the tissue funnel that is clamped. Then we have the distilled water, which is the surrounding. Then we have the sugar solution, and we have membrane tied to the funnel. So that's the membrane that is tied to the funnel. We have the sugar solution, and the surrounding is distilled water. So sugar solution condensation is higher than distilled water. So the surrounding distilled water, the sugar solution is the inner one. So the sugar solution is more concentrated than the surrounding. So the surrounding is what? An hypotonic solution. So since it's an hypotonic solution, that means water is going to move to the place of higher osmotic pressure. So the sugar solution in the tissue funnel is the hypertonic solution, is the one that have higher osmotic pressure. So the water from outside is going to move into the tissue funnel, and the level of the tissue funnel is going to rise. So can you see now that use the diagram shown to answer the question? After an hour, the level of water in the tissue funnel will what? It will rise. So the answer is A. If it is in hypertonic solution, that means the other way around, the source solution is outside and distilled water is inside, is going to fall. And if it is in isotonic solution, that means they are both distilled water in and out. It will remain the same. Nothing will happen. So the answer is rise. Now, the reason why you can't pick D, double, is that you can't actually see the rate of the movement of the water either in or out, or the level of the water that is in or out. So you can't say it is double or triple or quadruple. So the only option that you can choose is what? A. So answer is A. Let's move to the next question, please. Next question says red blood cells were found to have burst open after being placed in distilled water for an hour. This phenomenon is known as. Now, look at this. For when the red blood cell is placed in distilled water, the only thing that can make it to burst is that means the red blood cell is receiving water. It's taking in water. So as it's taking in water, it becomes very heavy. It can't contain the osmotic pressure again. The pressure is very high on it. Then it bursts. So, and I explained that plasmolysis is when the solution is higher than the cell, and the cell on its own shrink, becomes smaller. Diffusion is the movement of molecule from a region of higher condensation to a region of lower condensation until they are evenly dispersed. While hemolysis is movement of water or material into a cell, and the cell become enlarged, it cannot take the pressure again, and it bursts into the surrounding. So the answer will be C. Red blood cells are found to have burst open after being placed in distilled for an hour. The phenomenon is what? Hemolysis. That means it has taken water from the surrounding, that is hypotonic solution. So as it's taking the water, a time reached that it cannot contain the water, so you have to burst, and that is hemolysis. Then the next question: the curvature movement of plants in response to the stimulus of water is called. So this question is talking about one of the characteristics of living things called reversibility. So every human being, even plant, they respond to stimulus. As I'm sitting here, if I hear any sound from anywhere, the first thing is that I will get shocked and my face or anything will move closer to that place, showing that what I respond to stimulus. So we have many stimulus that we can respond to. We can respond to, let's look at the option. The curvature movement of plants in response to the stimulus of water is called A. Hydrotropism. Hydrotropism is the response to stimulus due to water. So the stimulus you are responding to you are responding due to water. Geotropism is when you are responding due to due to gravitation. Geotropism is when you are responding due to gravitation. That means if you plant any seed, when they are growing, the root will move towards the ground, and the up will move towards the earth. If you try and invert your seed when you are planting it, or you invert your nursery plant, you will see that the shoot and the egg will still move. So they are going to respond to geotropism. Why phototropism is when plants are responding to light. So it comes from phototropism comes from the word photo. Photo means light. Geo means it means the universe. It means gravitation. Why hydro means water. Then the last one is tigmotropism. Tigmo means contact. So sometimes we respond to stimulus due to contact. For example, now let's say a pin just touched me, a sharp pain, I will respond. Or let's say I passed through a place and there was fire that just touched my hand. My hand will respond to the stimulus. So that's tigmotropism. So hydrotropism is responding to water. Geotropism is responding to gravity. Phototropism is responding to light, and tigmotropism is responding to contact. So which one will be the answer? The curvature movement of plant in response to stimulus of water will be what? A. Hydrotropism. That's the answer. Hydrotropism. Can we move to the next question, please? Which of the following choices correctly describe the composition of the cell membrane? Which of the following choices correctly describe the composition of the cell membrane? Now, when I was explaining the organs of the cell, I told you that the ribosomes produce protein, and endoplasmic reticulum, they produce and store lipids. Endoplasmic reticulum produce and store lipids, and the ribosomes, they produce protein, which is directed by the Golgi body and stored. So from those two, those are the two things that are produced in the cells: lipids and protein. So let's look at the question again. Which of the following choices correctly describe the composition of the cell membrane? A. Contains only lipid? No. B. Contain lipids and protein? Yes. C. Contain lipids and cytosol? No. D. Contains only protein? No. So the correct answer is B. Contains lipids and protein. Next question, please. The level of organization in Spirogyra and Volvus is A. Organ, B. System, C. Cell, and D. Tissue. Now, in the level of organization, we have the linear race from the lower to the higher. The first one is the cell. So cell will combine. That's what I show you in the first slide. Yeah. So if you see that C1, you see that cell. An example of cell is what? An amoeba. So combination of cell will give you tissue. So when two cells or three cells combine together to function together, they produce a tissue. They become a tissue. Example of a tissue is epithelial tissue that is made up of many cells. And when many tissues combine together, 1, 2, 4, 5 tissues combine together, they form organ. Example of an organ is an heart organ and a leaf organ. And when many organs come together, they form a system. Example of a system is what? Example of a system is reproductive system. So when all these systems now combine together, excretive system, reproductive system, irritability, every system combined together, they now form organization. They form organism. They form human being. So let's now go back. Level of organization in Spirogyra and volvulus is A, organ, B, system, C, cell, and D, tissue. Now, Spirogyra and volvulus, they are unicellular animals. What do you mean by unicellular animal? Animals that has only one cell. So there's no combination of any cell. If there is, assuming there was combination of cells, we will have called them tissue. Assuming that there are combination of tissue, we have called them organ. Assuming that there is combination of organ, we will have called them system. But now it is only unicellular animal, so it is cell. C. Thank you. Next question, please. The common thing in plant and animal cell is now. If you look at both plant and animal cell, there are many things that are common in them that are present in both animal and present in plant cell. And there are things that are present in plant cell that are not present in animal cell. There are things that are present in animal cell and not present in plant cell. So let's first look at what is present in both two cells. Both plant and animal, they have the nucleus. Both plant and animal, they have the vacuole. But the only thing is that the vacuole in plant is bigger than the vacuole in animal. Both plant and animal, they have cytoplasms. Because cytoplasm is very, very important. The nucleus is very, very important. The vacuole is very, very important. The vacuole is used for excretion. So plant and animal must excrete, so they must have. The nucleus is the life of the cell. Plant and animal must have life, so they must have. The cytoplasm is the one that suspends all the organisms, that move them from one part and distribute them, so they must all have. Then they must also have the cell membrane, because the cell membrane is the one that covers the cells. It is like the gate or the boundary, the boundary that covers a house. Without the boundary, without the fence, anybody that can just enter the house. So the cell wall, the cell membrane is there for both plant and animal, so that nothing can come in, nothing can go out except the permit. So the cell wall, the cell membrane is selective permeable membrane that allow anything that they want to enter or anything that they want to pass. Now, if you look at the animal cells, animals don't produce their own food, so they will not need chloroplast, because the chloroplast contains a pigment, a green pigment that is used in photosynthesis. So since me and you will not need to photosynthesize our food, then our cell will not need any chloroplast. We need to go and get our food from where we want it, either from our tree or from anywhere that we can get it. But plants can produce their own food, so they have chloroplast. Very, very important for them. Then, and plants cannot move from one place to another. The movement of plants is not noticeable. So they don't need something that will protect them from falling. They don't need something that will protect them from running, from jumping. Because they don't jump, they don't run, they don't fall. So after the cell membrane, the animal cells still need the cell wall. So the cell wall is the one that protects, is a very rigid one that protect them, the cell membrane and the whole animal cell, from either being changed shape or being burst. So plant cell will not need the chloroplast, animal cell will need the chloroplast. Then the centrioles is present in the centrosomes, and it is organs for cell division. Cell division don't happen in animal cell, so it happens only in plant cell. Cell division don't happen in plant cell, it happens only in animal cell. So they will need that centrioles. So the question now says, the common thing in both plant and animal cell is, so from my explanation now, we know that plants have chloroplast, animal don't. Plants have, animal has centrioles, while plants don't have. plant has cell wall, while animal don't have. Plant has cell wall, animal don't have. Then they both have nucleus. Both plant and animal have nucleus because it is very, very important for them. They both have nucleus. So the answer is C, nucleus. So chloroplast is only have by plant cell. Cell wall is only have by plant cell. Centrals is only have by animal cell. So the nucleus is both plant and animal has the nucleus. So the answer is nucleus. Thank you. So the next question. An example of organism which exists as a colony is volvus. We have A, volvus, B, paramecium, C, euglena, and D, chlamydomonas. So a colony is just like tiny things coming together. I don't have any slide to show here what a colony is like. Maybe when you get home, you can check. You can also check from your system what a colony is like. So the organism that has colony in all this is volvus. A. Paramecium don't have colony. Euglena don't have colony. Chlamydomonas don't have colony. Though they are all unicellular animals, but the only volvus that exist as colony. Next question. Thank you. The ability of living organisms to detect, respond to changes in the environment is referred to as A. Locomotion, B. Stasis, C. Growth. Like I told you before, that I told you about Mr. Naja D, that every living organism exhibits Mr. Naja D, where M is the movement, they move from one place to another. Also, plants move, but the movement is not noticeable, but they still move. R is respiration, breaking down of the bigger molecule to smaller one, the breathing. Both plant and animal does that. The N is nutrition, taking in food. We all does that. Both plant and animal. Then I is irritability. That's responding to stimulus. So if we look back again at this, the ability of a plant of a living organism to detect and respond to changes in the environment is referred to as what? Irritability. That's the response to stimulus. Irritability. Growth is when you take in and you increase in size. Both plant and animal, it's happened to them. Locomotion is movement. But movements occur in animals. Locomotion occur in animal, but not in plants. But movements occur in both. So the answer is irritability. Next question. Now, a tissue is composed of a group of, I told you earlier on that combination of cells will give you tissue. Combination of tissue will give you organ. Combination of organ will give you system. And combination of system will give you organization. So now the question is saying a tissue is composed of a group of, that means what tissue is made up of. That means things that combine together to form a tissue. They are what? Similar cells. Similar cells combine together to form tissue. So the answer is A, similar cells. It's not B, tissue, it's not system, it's not related organ. Many tissue will form organ, many organ will form systems. Next question, please. So this question will not go to this question because it belongs to the animal kingdom that we move out. Same thing with the next question. There's a lower use of classification, so that will come from our next class. One of these is present in both plant and animal cell. One of these is present in both plant and animal cell. Cell membrane, cell wall, chloroplast, last cell vacuum. Now, you can see repetition from JAMB question. So that's the reason why you need to, even after you have read, still try to study your past question. Try to study your past question because this is a repetition. One of these is present in both plant and animal cells. I've told you before that both plant and animal, they have cell membrane. It is only plant cell that have a cell wall. It is only animal that have chloroplast. Both plant and animal, they have vacuum. But the vacuum in plant is larger than the one in animal. So, from here now, the best choice is what? Is A. One of these is present in both plant and animal cell. So the answer is cell membrane. A. Next question, please. When the solute concentration of the cell and its surrounding medium are the same, the solution is said to be isotonic. I've said it here. That when a cell and its surrounding is having the same concentration, this is called isotonic solution. When a cell and its surrounding, when the surrounding is having an higher concentration than the cell, it is called hypertonic solution. When the cell is having higher concentration than the surrounding, it is called hypotonic solution. So the question says when the solute concentration of the cell and its surrounding medium are the same, the solution is said to be what? Isotonic. C. Next question, please. The lowest level of organization in living organism is what? Cell. Cell is the unit of life. I've told you the first thing, when you break everything, you break every human being, the same way the chemist will say the smallest unit of element, the smallest unit of everything is an element. Atom, the smallest unit of an atom is an element. So also a biologist will tell you that the smallest unit of every organism, when you cut us into smaller to the last smallest size, what you still see there is cell. Because the cell is the smallest unit of life that can exist on its own and still make sure that there's life in that thing that is inside. So the lowest level of organization in living organism is what? Is cell. The highest level is what? System. So the answer is B, cell. Next question, please. Which of the following is the most complex according to cellular level of organization? The most complex according to the cellular level of organization. Now, A, we have heart. B, we have air. Then C, we have euglena. And D, we have hydra. Now, the simplest of them is euglena. Euglena is just a cell. It's representing a cell. It's representing a cell. Hydra, the hydra is representing a cell. While the heart and the air, the heart is an organ that is part. The heart is an organ that is part of respiratory system. So the heart combined with other organs to form respiratory system. So the answer is the heart. So which of the following is the most complex according to their cellular level of organization? So heart. The answer is heart. Next question, please. Which of the following organism is multicellular? Which of the following organisms is multicellular? We have A, Chlamydomonas, B, Spirogyra, C, Amoeba, D, Euglena. Amoeba is unicellular. That's protozoa. Euglena is unicellular. That's also protozoa. Then Chlamydomonas is also the same. So the answer is Spirogyra. Spirogyra is the monocellular organism among them. Which of the following is an example of arbore? When we talk about arbore, we have three types of animals. We have the terrestrial, we have the Atlantic, then we have the arbore. Terrestrial are those that move on the land, like we human beings, as you are moving on the ground. That's terrestrial. Then we have those in the water, and we have that's fish. Then we have the arbore, those that fly. So the answer is bird. So elephant will be terrestrial, fish will be aquatic, antelope will be terrestrial, then bird is the only one that fly in the air. So bird is arbore. Thank you. So the answer is D. A circulatory system is very essential in mammals, but not in smaller organisms like amoeba, because a circulatory system is very essential in mammals, but not in smaller organisms like amoeba, because now amoeba is just only one cell. Imagine a circulatory system. A system needs to have many organs coming together, like billions of cells, millions of tissue, hundreds of organs to now form the system. But amoeba is just having only one cell. So how can one cell combine to form a system? So that is why the creator know that you amoeba, you are having only one cell. So there's no need for you to have a circulatory system. I will just make sure that there's osmotic pressure between your inner and the outside water, so that when you need more thing to come inside you, the organization will be low inside and they will come in. When you need more thing, when you need to purge yourself out, the concentration inside you will be higher and you purge yourself out. So let's look at the option. A, amoeba lives in fresh water. B, diffusion is sufficient for transport material in amoeba. C, amoeba lacks blood containing hemoglobin. D, amoeba exhibits anaerobic respiration. So the best choice here, it is not amoeba lives in fresh water. It is not that amoeba lacks blood containing hemoglobin, and it is not that amoeba exhibits anaerobic respiration. It is because diffusion is sufficient to transport material in and of amoeba. It has only one cell. So it is only when the concentration is low inside, diffusion occurs, thing comes in. Concentration is high outside, low outside, diffusion occurs, it goes outside. So the answer is B. Diffusion is sufficient to transport materials in amoeba. So that is why God did not give amoeba that circulatory system. Thank you. Next question. The process in which complex substance, the process in which complex substance are broken down into simpler one is referred to as A, anabolism, B, catabolism, C, metabolism, and D, tropism. Now, when the reason why we have respiration is because our body cannot take everything that we are eating as they are coming. So they need to be broken down into smaller one. They all need to be broken down into smaller one. An example is respiration. Yeah, excuse me, please. process in which complex substances are broken down into simpler ones is referred to as A. Anabolism, B. Catabolism, C. Metabolism, and D. Tropism. So the answer is catabolism. That's the process of breaking down of higher material into smaller one. While metabolism is a process of building. Tropism is reaction, irritability. That means you are reacting. So the organ which is sensitive to light in nuclear is the A. Gullet, B. Flagellum, C. Chloroplast, and now let me explain. These are all parts of Euglena. Euglena has all these parts. The gullet is just like the what is it called? We can call it like our own stomach. So that's where any food that Euglena wants, that's where it passes through. So the gullet, like it has like sieving material that you just anything that you want will drop inside. Why what it doesn't want, the Euglena doesn't want, we just flash it, we just go off. Then we have the flagellum. That is what that's what the Euglena use for moving and for sensitivity. When Euglena want to move from one place to another, it use the flagellum. Then C is a chloroplast. The chloroplast is what the Euglena use for providing its own food, producing its own food, like an animal. The Euglena behave like animal and behave like plants. So every animal cannot produce their own food. It's only plants that can produce their food. So Euglena producing its own food through that chloroplast. Then the eye spot is what the Euglena use for sensitivity and even to see everywhere. The eye spot uses to see very sharp. So the answer is eye spot. Next question. The organelles present in the cell that are actively respiring and photosynthesizing are, so they follow each other. The organelles present in the cells, the organelles present in cells that are actively respiring and photosynthesizing are, so respiration and photosynthesis. So the organelles in cell for respiration is what? Mitochondria. Photosynthesis is what? Chloroplast. So they said A, lysosomes and ribosomes. The ribosomes produce protein, while the lysosomes is a packing site. The endoplasmic reticulum, it produces the lipids, and the jojo body is a packaging. The nucleus is the house of the cell, is the life of the cell, and the centros is division, is the division site. While the mitochondria is the one that do the respiration in the cell, and chloroplast is the one that photosynthesize the food. So the answer is D, mitochondria and chloroplast. Thank you. Next question. We're not going to the next question, this next question, because it belongs to the next topic. Which of the following describe, the same thing, the two of them. That is the end of the slide for today. So, I believe that you have gained many things from the questions that you have seen. Also, you'll have seen repetition of question, because I brought the question from many years, between 2021 to 2000. So you can see repetition, asking the same question in different way. So what I will tell you is, go back into I will send you some from 2000 downward. I will send you those questions as an assignment from 2000 downward. So you see the repetition, how they go. So I want you to answer those questions. When you answer them, look at it, and the next class we might have like first 15 or 20 minutes to discuss anyone that is bringing argument that I see that the answer are not corresponding. I look at them, then we'll talk about them. Talk about everything. So the goal is for you to pass very well in your JAM. And for you to pass very well in your JAM, you have to read your book very well. This time, you have to read as if you have never read before. You have to read as if book is the only thing, JAM is the only thing that can make you to survive in life. You have to read. And as you are reading, God will give you assimilation and God will help you. Thank you. Bye-bye.